looking at Internet of Things and not think about how do we also digitize currency system that everybody currently uses. I mean, that would be such a big lift to ask everyone to move away from the current infrastructure and ask them to go and learn something brand new. And we keep talking about education, but we would be asking everyone, regardless, especially the ones that are not thinking about how to diversify their portfolio, how do they get into advanced investing, to start learning about cryptocurrencies in order for them to get food on their table, right? So my answer is usually, instead of printing cash, which is a non-digital way of getting money, how can central banks move to also digitize the way money is created, right? That's a simple transformation, major, but that is at the lowest level of the infrastructure that we can possibly get. Central banks today, hate it or love it, own the money infrastructure today, the currency infrastructure today. A start is to say, how do we digitize that? So instead of printing cash, we see blockchain as a unique technology, whether it's DLT, token-based definitely, for it to be interoperable into what we know the future is coming when it comes to the digital economy. So a token-based currency just makes sense. From an infrastructure perspective, we should look at the central bank to provide that. Because using cryptography and using blockchain technology and using immutability as key capabilities to provide transparency in the system, to provide more trust in the system, should be also considered. So whether you guys, people want to call it crypto or not, doesn't really matter. What are we solving for? And that's the context in which I think about central bank digital currency. So when I set up MTech, I wanted to find the solutions to solve those two problems. How do we get everyone access to financial services regardless of where you live? Regardless of what your potential can be, because we don't know what your potential is if you don't have access and if you don't have the infrastructure for you to make choices and get out of whatever situation you're in.
Happy Friday, man! It has been it's been a great week, action packed. I've been seeing you guys a lot, and I hope you've been enjoying it as much as I have. Today, very happy. I've got Carmelle Cadet on, and this is a name that you need to know. She's been in the game for a very long time. As I've posted many times, worked with IBM, and has started her own company and has been working directly with central banks over the past year. She's an incredible person. I'm glad to bring her to the show. Everybody, welcome Carmelle. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you for the amazing intro. I love it, Sam. Thank you.
Well, you know what? You've been doing so much, and I've been really following you, and it's been exciting for all of you guys out there. I've been trying to get her on the show for a little while, and it's so cool because one day I talked to her and she's in the Caribbean. The next time I talk to her, she's in Africa. Where are you now?
In Harlem.
In Harlem. Shout out to Harlem. That's awesome. See?
That's what I rep. I rep Haiti. I rep the Caribbean. I rep Africa. I rep Harlem. That's where we stay.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. I want to start off with a little bit about your background. For instance, I saw where NYC FinTech had you part of their Women's Inspiring of FinTech Females of 2019. First of all, how was that experience for you?
Well, I got plugged into this amazing group. So it actually started, if I remember correctly, as a meetup group, at least the way I came across the team.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that I was leaving IBM to start MTech, really looking for a network of women actually in the tech space to really plug into. I'm a big believer of mentorship. I'm a child of mentorship. I'm not that smart, and I realize that I find a lot of knowledge in talking to people and working with other people when it comes to getting access to this. So I might have some people joining and kind of doing some work, so don't mind the noise.
Nah, no worries.
but the idea, that's exactly how I got plugged into this ecosystem of women that play in the tech space, that are doing amazing things. So for me, that was my way of finding mentors outside of IBM. I spent 10 years, even from the first time I joined IBM, I got assigned a mentor. So I needed that outside of IBM the moment I could actually find it. So that was my start. Amazing women, and thank you for recognizing me at the time that we were just getting started.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into some of the major announcements that have come out just recently. But you mentioned IBM, and IBM is, historically is known for leading the cutting edge. I mean, you talk about the back strip of a credit card, IBM. You talk about Xerox machines. Yeah, the barcode is is IBM. Tell us about a little bit about your experience there, because I saw that you held a lot of great positions at one point, and I actually have it up here. At one point, even I got you covered. You were part of the payments. You part of the IBM's payment blockchain, IBM WorldWire. What can you share about what you learned from those experiences and how that's really helped you today?
Oh man, so that was a great experience for me too. Career wise, it was a big shift for me actually at that time. If you look at my up until that point, I did corporate finance, really started my career there in IBM. I joined as an intern and then kind of learned the ropes. Um, Got mentors, built a career, kind of found out what I wanted to do in life, through different roles. And IBM was a company that really allowed you to have, 10 careers in 10 years kind of thing. I had five different roles in 10 years, and it feels like you actually do very different jobs. So I worked, when it comes to thinking about how to price enterprise IT at a global level. It's always interesting to price something, on multiple currencies, right? And to actually sell with different cultural backgrounds. Those are things that, you kind of have to think about when you're the product pricer, the product CFO, the portfolio manager. So I got to learn a lot of that. So I work with legal, I work with accounting, I work with the
Impressive.
salesperson, to really kind of define what is the right strategy, how do we make money, how we did deliver value. IBM was always kind of big on that. It's kind of a scalable concept when it comes to commercializing software specifically. I'm very grateful for that, because learning those notions and then being able to take them, put them in a concept of something that I wanted to do specifically is where kind of my transition came in. IBM, kind of big idea company, moonshot company, building software that really does big things into the enterprise software. But it doesn't do everything. So after working, so it was exciting to work on the WorldWire project because I went into the business development side of it.
Okay.
Got to see how you build a product from scratch. Got to learn the plus and minuses of that. But also, how do you build a team? How do you tell a story? How do you engage regulators? I remember we were at IBM kind of defining what is a stable coin. And at the
Yeah.
time, we were actually, we're working with the Stellar Network and defining how to do that, to
Wow.
provide banks, the opportunity to issue their own tokens and get on a network where you can actually facilitate cross-border payments on a peer-to-peer. Like when we say peer-to-peer, FI to FI, as they connect to their end users in each jurisdictions, or to service their customers.
Can I highlight something can I
Yeah,
highlight one thing you just said?
yeah.
I want everyone listening right now to understand what you just mentioned. That they were defining at that time, many years ago, with Stellar, exactly how do you define what a stable coin is. And so, I was talking to Jason earlier this week about how everybody's talking, everyone's an expert now on stable coins. Everyone's an expert now on CBDCs. But you were there at the very beginning when all of this was really starting, the concept was coming together. So I think that's something that needs to be pointed out. You know, that's that's
You know,
I
I'll
thought that's
take the
pretty cool.
opportunity to give a shout out to the WorldWire team, the
That's
project
right. That's right.
managers, the CTOs, and the team, and the leaders at the time. I think we were early on. The early teams we had really good idea, but it never made it to market, and partly because from a regulatory perspective, there was an education that needed to be done. It
Okay.
wasn't that the product wasn't really good. The concept was really good. And I think we all recognize that if, especially the OCC rule that came out, I think it was it end of January or maybe it was end of December that said that, banks can issue their stable coins and they can perform settlement in stable coin. That's exactly what we were defining.
Right.
That's
Right. Right.
exactly
Right.
instead of everybody can talk about their tokens. I don't want to get in trouble with everybody else, right? When we start talking about different tokens, but there's a value in streamlining the process of saying banks can issue their own stable coins the same way they manage deposits today. There is a financial kind of structure around it that makes it a bit more trusted compared to if you were to use a third party token. And each have their own use cases and pros and cons. But at the time, we thought that was something that was going to be the case. And the OCC kind of establishing that validated idea.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so you actually gave some more insight there because we get that question a lot. Is what happened with WorldWire? Was it a system or functionality? But I think, and that's what I believe. But I'm glad to hear from your perspective that it had more so to do with the current regulatory environment that was kind of slowing things down.
Yep, yep. I think that was my experience. So at the time I left, so as you know, I left before any final decision was made, partly because we saw the opportunity, a different opportunity around central bank digital currency. And at the time, it was a long shot. It was a really long shot. But like I mentioned in the intro that you were just showing, I have a particular focus. I'm from Haiti. I was born and raised there. I moved to the U.S. when I was 17, so I know what it's like to grow up in a highly unbanked environment.
Right.
Um, Savings and checking accounts and mortgages and credit, they're different where I'm from, right? There's no concept of mortgage. Partly culturally, there's a cultural aspect of it too. It's like,
Okay.
we're going to build our own house. We're going to take years
Right. 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 Right.
build a house from scratch than buying, kind of taking a mortgage to build a house. That's the Caribbean way, right?
That's
And
right.
partly the African way too. I was just actually in Ghana talking to our team down there, but there's the cultural aspect, but there's also the lack of the market, the credit market, and how do you provide KYC? How do you enable, um, you know, trustworthy lending and credit market to really service that population? It's different. It's really different, and the need is there. Um, Haiti relies about 80% of its GDP on cross-border remittances. Those are the problems for me where I came from. I wanted to solve, right?
Right.
Financial inclusion, finding a cost-effective way of doing remittances. My mom still sends money to people in Haiti, and it costs a lot, right? So I still roll my eyes as far as however every time that she has to kind of do that. So we're working on that. We're working on that.
No, that's great. I mean, that's something, talking about MTech. I have a comment on your profile where it says modernizing central banking and reimagining cash to close the inclusion gap. And, one thing that I always try to talk about in these streams is that there's so much potential. Yesterday I had Tomas in Brazil, and we're just talking
Hmm.
about the extreme potential that, every one of these communities have, but the lack of access to these financial instruments is a real thing, and it definitely does slow up a lot of opportunities. So that's great. So you guys say that MTech is the fintech of modern central banking. What exactly do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so we played around with that for a while, but after I left IBM, actually, I hit the ground talking to central banks across both regions, Africa and the Caribbean. And although we went in talking about central bank digital currencies, the
Mm-hmm.
conversation turned out, because we were listening, because we were still kind of in discovery mode, and kind of what does this space need, what does this space look like, what does it even mean to sell to a central banks. Many people were telling me it's not a thing. It's just not a thing. Like, what are you talking about, right? But we essentially heard a client segment defining their needs. That was, yes, we understand that innovation is coming, but we don't have a way to actually structure that. That's not part of our DNA right now. We are economists, we are lawyers, we are,
Right.
very, very smart people, by the way, that work at the central bank. They are one of the smartest people that I meet, and a lot of them are the nicest people that I meet. I'm not a central banker, so going into this space for me kind of gave me some doubt whether I could speak their language. But come to find out, that's a client segment that's been not particularly defined. And they are in the middle of a paradigm shift. And I could not have predicted at the time in 2019 when I left that, you know, Libra would have came back and said, yes, we want CBDC. We could have not predicted China accelerating theirs. We could not have predicted COVID. We could not have predicted, PayPal saying we want to be CBDC providers, and kind
Right.
of that model emerging is really a result of the realization 2 years ago for us that central banks are going to be in the middle of this. And
Mm-hmm.
if they don't actually come up with a framework that allows them to participate in this, the whole ecosystem is going to suffer.
Right.
The
Right. Right.
benefits that we think we want with digital currencies, um, I understand the frustration for people who say we want to bypass the central banking system altogether.
Yeah.
The only thing that I kind of got into, keep hitting a brick wall on is, wait, are central banks going away? Is there a scenario under which we see central banks disappearing? You
Right.
know,
Right.
we can't tokenize them and then say, everybody buys them and then put them in a wallet somewhere. It's not what we can do. And they hold power by
Yeah.
law, right? So unless you tell me that you can um, revise all of that history and structure, I really had a hard time seeing how central banks are not part of the solution here. So modernizing central bank is really an idea concept to say there's a new way of doing central banking. There are great opportunities into using technology to become better central banks and to evolve with this paradigm and make them stronger and more effective in the innovation space that consumers are asking for, businesses are embracing, and it's not just about doing the status quo. There are ways to mitigate risk. There are ways to affect better monetary policy with better technology and with innovation.
Man. Oof. That could be a clip
That's
right there. No, no, that's awesome. I think that could be a clip right there. That's really hitting on so many different avenues. So, how would you describe central bank digital currencies? Let's break that down and then compare it to
yeah,
stablecoin.
sure. So the big demarcation between central banks, digital currencies, and stablecoin is who the issuer is and the legal treatment of it. Um, Very specifically, central bank digital currencies, you would imagine a central bank would be the one to issue it and
Mm-hmm.
have it deem some form of the sovereign currency, a legal tender from a legal jargon perspective. That's a very unique and sometimes not so black and white, concept, but those
Mm-hmm.
are very clear definitions and areas and qualities that a central bank digital currency would have. For the purpose of the industry, you would say that is also a stable coin. For the purpose of the
Okay.
technology, it can look and feel like a stable coin because it is backed by um, on a one-to-one basis to a certain reserve or a concept of monetary policy that the central bank would be responsible for. And the other uniqueness of central bank digital currency is that the issuer by law, we're not going to argue about the economics value of it, but
Mm-hmm.
can print endlessly, and therefore you really eliminate the risk of settlement. So there's a
True.
unique factor around CBDC that makes it almost a riskless asset, and a basket of other digital assets. Any other digital assets that's either issued by a third party would have some level of counterparty risk. You
Right.
have to rely on the issuer to have enough funds to be there tomorrow to be able to settle the transaction, recognize and protect your interaction and the use of that token. So those are the big differences. And for me, the picture that I see that I talk about a lot in the future, given those different characteristics of the tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bitcoin serves, or cryptocurrencies serve, have different characteristics, and they serve better into wealth building and, speculation, which we do today in stock investment and equity investment, and people have appetite for that, and they should continue to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But that also comes with plus and minuses. So the
Right.
future I imagine is that people will have more choices. They would want to have a riskless asset that gives them peace of mind. They would have a stable coin that gives them access to certain networks and certain benefits and certain economics that they tap into. And then you could have Bitcoin that people invest in. You could have all three of them in your portfolio for different reasons.
See, you see, hey, Carmelle is breaking it down. I mean, this is good stuff. Y'all need to go ahead and make sure you retweet, download, share with everybody, because I think what you're saying is so important, right? And even within the crypto community, people like to try to lump and compete everybody together, but there's different use cases for everything, and what the whole digitized world is allowing us is
Yeah.
options. And so, perfectly said, perfectly said. So a little bit on the CBDCs again. I have one more question on that. Is there is still those that look at central bank digital currencies as a negative, right? But there's one thing that you've mentioned before, is that it's important for financial inclusion. Is it
Yeah.
possible for you to I guess, share your thoughts on that for the audience that's listening?
Sure. So as we were looking at COVID, especially in the middle of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
as the stimulus payments and different types of bottlenecks started happening in the system, people started talking about, why is this so clunky? Why is it so hard to get money to people? I've
Yeah.
always been talking about a financial inclusion problem in the U.S., but the U.S. doesn't always kind of have a priority right away for that. A lot of the pain points is around maybe, security settlement, because the numbers are bigger and it's more visible to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of the US, there's a clear financial inclusion problem.
Right.
And when we talk about 2 billion people that are unbanked, millions more are underbanked, right? As far as the high fees of, and when it comes to transfers and remittances in some areas, although they are all mobile first, it's still more expensive in Africa. So Africa is very digitally banked. You would assume, say in some markets, they have made some progress with mobile money in that sense and e-money, but you still have the cost of payment that continues to increase. um, the cons waiting for the banks to actually solve the problem of the underbanked is something that I think has proven, and we have given enough time to say that's not something that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Partly because the business model isn't aligned with that, right? Why would a
True.
bank
True. True. True.
go out of their way to provide services let alone at the same level that they would provide their, high network banked customers to someone that is barely holding a dollar, in their account. But that
Yeah.
person might not have a dollar to hold in their account, but they might be spending all day. They're spending all day. So that incentive around deposit is not aligned with the use of money for people who are cash based, who are transacting, who need to pay for a bunch of other stuff throughout the day and their week. So the concept of taking cash, paper cash, and digitizing that with blockchain technology is a concept that we wrote about to say every country should have a digital cash infrastructure. And when we define that with central bank digital currencies, so the value proposition is very simple. Instead of printing cash, buy our software and issue digital currency, in a blockchain way that interoperates now much easier with stable coins, with other networks, with other cryptocurrencies. And that's what financial inclusion is for us, right? Not only do you provide inclusion by design, by providing a base wallet, a base digital cash infrastructure, but you make that interoperable with what the users might also want to tap into when it comes to finding more efficiencies with stable coins. I know Danielle and I were talking yesterday about the Seller Foundation, the Development Foundation, to say, how can CBDC provide, not only that digital dollar and that digital economy for MSMEs, but also MSMEs can find great value into stable coins to provide merchant services and cross-border services, paying for employees outside of the US. So you have a strong domestic digital currency, digital cash, that you can also make interoperable with stablecoin to pay into different networks. And you provide resilience and good compliance when you do that too.
Man. You know what? I just want to say I would love to be just in the back room with you and Danelle talking. I just want to sit there and just listen. Yeah, I might learn something. That's good. Another person that I have a lot of respect for. You talked about the underbanked, and I think that one aspect too is that here, even in the States, we do a lot with rental properties, and a lot of our tenants, in many cases, they don't have full bank accounts, and so we see them go from, let's say, they get a paycheck, they go to a check cashing place. There's massive fees taken off of that. Then they got to turn around to to get a money order. There's massive fees that are taken out of the money order just to pay for their rents. And so here, even in the States, if we can have a streamlined digital cash system, would save a lot of money and help a lot of people that are, like you said, working paycheck to paycheck. You're talking about maybe an additional 5% of their income right back to them, simply by giving them the access to a digital financial infrastructure. So I mean, that's almost like an investment vehicle. So I think that's great what you're saying. I want to pivot now back to MTech and what you guys are doing, because it's really impressive. I want to start off in the Bahamas. Over in the Bahamas here, I saw, and I'll go ahead and bring this up. Let's see. It's gonna come through. It's not gonna come through, but the what you guys are doing with the modern central banking innovation.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the Bahamas, so that's a very interesting story, right? So that started essentially before MTech was even created, but we were very lucky to participate as a subcontractor for the cross-border component. So that's actually very exciting to us when it comes to integrating what the team is launching now,
Okay.
in Bahamas, but eventually, how that actually touches and how that actually feels for cross-border payment. Some of the stuff that we're looking at, we're working with, some payment service providers down there that are regulated by the central bank, essentially, starting that process of saying the send dollar, being the distribution currency and getting everybody onboarded down there is kind of the foundation work that the team is doing over there. So the India team and the Bahamas team are doing that right now.
That's great.
Eventually anticipate, volume as far as, other institutions and people getting onboarded on that. That'd be great. And kudos to them. By the way, let me take the opportunity to say that I get frustrated every time, we're talking about CBDC, and Bahamas is often not present on the list for whatever reason.
Yes.
And they are first to issue to officially take,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and take the step and say, look, we have a need and we're going to do this. We might not know everything about it, but we're going to go figure it out for the purpose of providing financial inclusion. So that's what the team did. But yeah, that was a great start. That was a great start
Yeah,
to the whole.
and honestly too, it's like I mentioned prior to the call. I'm from Caribbean descent. My parents are from Trinidad and Tobago, family of Trinidad and Tobago, and so absolutely for the Bahamas to come out at the forefront of this is very exciting. And if there's any opportunities to talk to more folks out in the Caribbeans that are doing this, that are involved, let me know, and I'll give them a platform.
Oh, yes. So actually, yesterday we announced our partnership with WePay. They
That's
are
right. That's right. That's
actually
right.
in Trinidad and Tobago. They are in Jamaica. They are in a few countries across the region.
Did you say
They're
Trinidad and
really
Tobago?
they are based from Trinidad and Tobago right now, and they actually do business in five other
What?
online payments
Nice.
right. Yeah, so I'll introduce you to the CEO. I think you guys can chop it up. You
Yes.
find this platform very interesting to talk.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think there's a great concept around, how can you bring the model to the regulators in a thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
way. Our partnership is taking a stab at that. We're both from the Caribbean. We're really
Yes.
proud of working together and trying to come up with a solution for the region. That would be kind of a bucket list thing. So the concept is essentially how can you take a stable coin plus a CBDC and plus the digital sandbox that we also announced yesterday. How do you put that together and engage regulators to say, look, here's the value, here's the um, your view of the ecosystem of the engagement, but also a regulated entity in those markets being able to provide more services and align with financial inclusion and digitization of payment is something that we think can be very valuable. It
That's
checks,
great.
depending on the design, depending on in the approach. Hopefully, you kind of look into, how do you reorganize trade? How do you reorganize remittances? How do you make that a bit more, a bit cheaper? If the digital dollar were to be issued, there's a lot of remittances that come from the U.S. Can you really streamline things like this? So, and opening new routes between the
Right.
Caribbean and Africa is a dream. So that's down the line.
Nah, I know your family's got to be proud. Got to be proud. You're doing a lot, and that's really the exciting thing about really following this a total blockchain community is we're seeing folks that are able to take their experiences, their education, their work that they've learned, and figure out, okay, how can I bring that back and help so many more people. And so I'm really excited about that. You mentioned the announcement just yesterday with the Central Bank of Ghana.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Just hard work, just be on the ground.
Absolutely.
And well, I mean, our engagement with central banks is very straightforward in a way that we bring policy and tech together. One of the first things I did when I started MTech is to bring on board a former central banker. Although I recognized the opportunity, I
Mm-hmm.
knew I didn't know how to do it, right? And that was my lesson, my first lesson. I knew enough to maybe put a business model around an idea, but crafting that idea, identifying what needed to be defined, um, that's something that I feel like I could do once we had that. So we hit the road and went to talk to central banks. So the first central bank that I went to, actually did my exit interview at IBM from Nairobi, was in Kenya. So
Wow.
that was the first experience, and that went the way it went. I have stories for days, but that went the way it went. But it was 2019. The team is the deputy governor is an amazing woman, and it was great to connect with leaders in that space too. It
Mm-hmm.
was a conference with MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and the Kenyan Central Bank. So the team was very open and engaging, which was great. So we had the opportunity to do that. But then we kind of kept talking, and then the other conference we went to later that year was in Ghana. So I love going. Ghana was the first country in Africa that I ever visited.
The last
So
time we
I did.
talked, you were in Ghana. That was
That's
that
right.
was yeah. That's right. That's right.
You were on the road with me in Ghana. That's right.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
so we actually did conference. I get lucky sometimes. I think we are in a very niche space enough that we stand out. So the organizers of that event reached out and said, we know you came, last year in 2018, and you were talking about this blockchain thing, and everybody was kind of like pushing you out the door and saying that Africa would never do this, and that kind of stuff. But I knew that wasn't the case because, Bitcoin and blockchain is not something you keep within borders. The moment you
Mm-hmm.
tell someone, a developer or some young kid who wants to do something new about this, you don't need anything, right? And so that understanding made me realize that that would be interesting, and I was hoping it would be, given my understanding of the power of the technology. So they called me for the following year to come MC the conference. So that was my first time doing an MC. Didn't have much time to network, which I like to do, but got an
Right.
opportunity to moderate panels with the Central Bank of Ghana at the time, with the Central Bank of Nigeria. So it really is about relationship. It's really about telling a story that people think is valuable to them. We started speaking central bankies, put it that way, right?
Well,
And
you know
that
what? Yeah.
that's what really allowed us to have a conversation. We had people who opened doors for us, and said, we think our central bank should hear you directly. They're not here in the conference, but we should make an introduction. They should hear from you. So that was the beginning, and I think people kind of resonated with what we wanted to do. We've been very fortunate to do that, and I think that was the same. We work with the Bank of Ghana. They just established an innovation office. We built a relationship, followed up, zoomed our way through it. During the pandemic, we didn't give up. We followed up, and we were able to establish and sign an MOU and so on with the Bank of Ghana. So that was great, and that was the beginning of the collaboration. So yesterday they announced the pilot, which is amazing. So I'm going to be very busy over the next
Yeah.
few weeks. The timing of our talk was planned before that. So
Perfect.
I'm happy to be doing this, but I'll probably be underground. This is our first central bank that we won on our own creds. We take it very seriously. Bank of Ghana was named the best central bank in sub-Saharan Africa in 2020.
Wow. Wow.
The governor was also nominated by the IMF for the best central bank governor. So they're a very prestigious central bank, and we could not have been happier. So now it's roll up our sleeves and let's do this right.
That's right. Well, I mean, looking at the comments that are here, yes, her name is Carmelle Cadet, and she is really incredible. Like, yeah, absolute powerhouse. Hey, get you out there. Let's get it to every single government. Zimbabwe, yes, let's make that happen one day as well. Yeah,
That's
yeah. Her
people
work, her
ask
work.
about Haiti too. Working on it. My country is not easy. Um, my mom would have a heart attack every time I said I want to go to Haiti. But
Uh,
I'm working on it. Working on it. I was there in 2014, and brought my husband because my husband, his family is from Haiti too, but he was born here in New York. So brought him, and I love Haiti.
nice.
I love it. To have that with peace and with structure is would be a dream come true. But I know so many people who are working on that. I mean, you talk about people from the diaspora who have skills, who have the passion, who have the resources. Hopefully, that really comes together this time around. That people can really um, bring through digitization, through tech, a different story.
Well, I have a feeling that I'm gonna be begging for another interview real soon to get more updates because I have a feeling you're gonna be breaking some more barriers.
You have to
Let's
let me
talk.
work. We
Huh?
actually have to do some work.
I know. Well, you know what it is, and it's funny. It's like I talk to so many people, even in our stellar community, that they don't understand the amount of work that it takes to make this happen. It's they want updates every single day, and it's like you guys have no idea what this
Yeah,
is all about.
it
Let's
takes time.
talk.
It
Let's
takes
talk
it
the
takes
let's talk the overall crypto
yeah,
community for
so,
a little bit.
yeah.
I know that it's we talked to CBDCs and stable coins, but what is your overall viewpoint on cryptos? Are you following any? I know that you've had meetings with Danelle. You were part of Meridian last year, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
But yeah, what are your overall thoughts on the crypto space?
Oh man. All right. So I'll say this. Which angle should I take this? I'll take the clubhouse angle
All
because
right.
the topics that I listen to, I kind of clubhouse conversation gave me even a deeper appreciation for how people talk about crypto.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of talk about crypto. Sometimes I really struggle personally when it comes to the
Yeah.
realistic conversation around those things. So I get the one end of those are toys, let's just invest.
Mm-hmm.
Elon is going to talk about it, it's going to go up, I'm going to get out and done. All
Right.
right, so there's definitely a space for that. If I were a day trader, that's definitely the game I would be right now. Right, but sometimes the questions that I see people are asking are more around what's going to make this token appreciate, when is the price for the token is going to go. And I think you can look around um, and kind of decide, do you want to go full speculation, or do you want to understand economics behind a token and then look for sound cues or KPIs or some theory on how to analyze the economics that's going to make it appreciate. So that's why so far, I mean, I'll say this publicly, right? So far, it's really Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Lumens for me. And I'm not saying that because I want to
Right.
kind of prop up Lumens. I want to be it's not an investment advice, but those are the things that I actually can, right or wrong, I might be totally
Right.
wrong, can wrap my mind around the economics on how to understand where value comes from. Um, that's really kind of my approach. So everybody can really play around. I can't wrap my mind around Dogecoin. I just can't.
Yeah.
That not that it's not everyone. I mean, my team is kind of like clicking away sometimes on those wallets, but for their personal use. So I hear the stories, but
Right.
it's that's my strategy when it comes to crypto. But I think you're going to see a plethora of um, options, use cases that crypto actually goes and serve for. And what I tell everyone is, don't judge the book by its cover or the coin by its cover or by its, you know, icon or design. Kind of what
Oh, the
is the use
dog or
of it?
whatever.
Right,
It's a
right. I
cute
mean, it
dog.
might
I'm gonna
still
buy
be a
it.
font, even if it's a dog, icon.
Right.
Get behind the economics on why is this going to be used. What makes it appreciate? Is it adoption? And if it is
Mm-hmm.
adoption, what is the plan for adoption? And that's how Bitcoin, if you look, Bitcoin really kind of start taking off every time there's a piece of information that says this is getting more accepted.
Right.
This is
True.
getting more
True. True.
accepted.
True.
So I think that's the biggest correlation, and that's what I look at.
Good, good, good. Well, I can't argue, your choices, at all, at all. I think that you're kind of right on the money there. Just to sort of wrap things up, I know that you have another event that's coming out. It's going to be co-hosted with SDF, Gemini, a lot of other major players, but it's the Women's History Month, support small business and blockchain. Small business is the engine of the crypto economy. What can you share about that? Looking forward to that event. I think that's going to be March 3rd.
That's right, March 3rd and 4th. The Blockchain National Policy Group actually brought this event together. I'm part of the host committee. We actually kicked off in 2019 and had an inaugural, that's my French kind of kicking in here, the inaugural event in 2019 where we had a briefing and we actually flew to Washington, D.C., met with U.S. Congress members, and to really bring a different voice and a different face to the conversation around crypto and blockchain. Because there's a real risk that regulatory decisions and legal decisions are done in a way that does not represent or take into consideration all the different stakeholders that are in this space. So we wanted to say, look, it's not just Libra that's using Bitcoin, that's using blockchain, right? It's not just, JP Morgan, that there are other use cases. There are all of us out there who are building things and or doing things in the blockchain space that you should also consider before you pass regulation or before you or call on us really to, if you want to have a conversation, if you want to understand different use cases and different applications from different voices, hopefully this is a place to do that.
Nice.
Join us
Absolutely.
Next week.
I've already registered. I would definitely share that information with everybody watching to register for this. How can people stay in touch with everything that MTech is up with? What's your website?
Yeah, so the website is futuremtech.com with one E, so FUTUREMTECH.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. If you don't hear from me, it's because we're working. When I try, we give updates and I share a lot of thought in the space. There's always something going on. And it's a very vibrant space for us right now to be in the conversation, to be at the table. And be able to drive our angle, what we think can be beneficial, and have a conversation with the broader stakeholders. I'm really excited about the BOG announcement yesterday because that really allows us to start really helping as they engage fintechs, as they engage API providers and players in this space to really start to understand what does the digital transformation really look like. What does deploying a digital sandbox really look like? So that's what's ahead. Hopefully, if we're successful, Bank of Ghana or central banks would find it easier to become more innovative, to adjust policy because they have access to real data and more data that they don't have before, but which exists, by the way, that fintechs and banks already have this data, but being able to get a sense of how technology, emerging technologies actually work, how are they being applied in the market? And yes, we can do KYC. Yes, you don't have to have the information in order for you to do KYC, as long as you understand that there's a compliance and risk mitigation in place for certain use cases, that blockchain is okay, right? The blockchain technology itself is not a reason why it should be automatically banned. It's really about how is it designed to mitigate some risk. So those are the conversations and activities we'll be busy with over the next few weeks and months.
Well, thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy. I'm really happy that you were able to hop on the show today. Thank you so much. Everybody that's listening, make sure to follow Carmelle Cadet. She's definitely a force in the blockchain space, an ally to people in crypto, blockchain as well. Somebody that you need to know. So spread this video.
Ally, although we're working with the centralized organization, we are.
Absolutely. As they always say, you have to have friends that are in the inside that understand both worlds to make sure that bridge of communication is open. Because if you kind of have these two worlds split apart, we're not going to get anywhere. So it's great that you're in there. Really proud of all the work that you're doing. Impressed by the work that you're doing, and I look forward to finding out more. Congratulations. Stay on for a little bit longer. We'll chat for a couple minutes. Everybody else, thank you for joining in. Thank you to Chan, Shingara, Dan, Harold, Emir, Brian, everybody, Larry out there in New York, out in Brooklyn. Thanks for tuning in. And we are out of here. Thank you so much.